The envelope arrived 3 days before Christmas. It was thick, cream-colored, and carried my mother's handwriting. I had not heard from that address in 15 years. Not a birthday card, not a single phone call. My hands still smelled like rosemary from the greenhouse when I opened it. An invitation to Christmas dinner. After 15 years of being erased from every family photo, they finally wanted me home. What I did not know then was that a lawyer's letter had already changed everything. My name is Sarah Merritt. I am 33 years old. I am an organic farmer in the Blue Ridge Valley of Virginia. For 15 years, my parents sent Christmas cards to 200 people. A photograph labeled our family. 3 people smiled in every single one: my father Robert, my mother Claire, and my older sister Diana. I was never in a single photo. I found out the way you always find out things your family hides. I was 19, visiting our old church for a friend's baby shower. A neighbor named Mrs. Elliott pulled me aside near the punch table. She squeezed my hand and whispered softly, "Honey, are your parents still doing well? I only see 3 people in their card this year." I smiled and told her everything was fine. Then I drove home and called my mother. "Mom, why was I not in the Christmas card?" She laughed a short, nervous sound. "Oh, sweetie, we used a photo from Diana's graduation weekend. You were not there." I believed her for about 3 hours. Then I found the card on Diana's social media page. It was not from any graduation. It was a professional studio portrait. Matching outfits, perfect lighting, everyone positioned just right. They had scheduled a family photo session, dressed for it, posed for it, printed 200 copies, and nobody called me. I should tell you who I am when I am not reading Christmas cards that forgot me. I farm 40 acres in the Blue Ridge Valley. I grow kale, heirloom tomatoes, butternut squash, and herbs. I supply 3 farm-to-table restaurants in the city, 2 weekend farmers markets, and a community agriculture program with 85 member families. Last year, the farm earned $280,000. I am not poor. I am not struggling. I am not a failure. But to my father, Robert Merritt, the word farmer meant exactly one thing. It meant I chose everything he had spent his whole career running away from. To understand why my father made me invisible, you have to understand who he is. Robert Merritt grew up on this very land, same valley, same dirt roads, same smell of soil in the morning. His mother, Grandma Eleanor, farmed it for 40 years after his father died young. Robert left for the city the day after his high school graduation and never looked back. He built a real estate business from nothing. He bought a house in the suburbs, joined the right social circles, married a woman who matched her tablecloths to her napkins, and became the kind of man who introduced himself by his job title before his name. When his youngest daughter said she wanted to go back to the valley, back to the farm, back to the soil, he stopped seeing me as his daughter. He saw me as a mirror, reflecting everything he had worked so hard to escape. The day I became invisible happened in June, the summer I turned 18. I had just graduated from high school. Robert had already arranged a summer internship at his real estate firm. He had printed the schedule, bought me a blazer, and set up a small desk in the back office with a nameplate that read, "S. Merritt Associate." I sat at the kitchen table and told him I was not going. I had been accepted into Virginia's Agricultural University program. Grandma Eleanor had invited me to work the farm with her on weekends and summers. I wanted soil under my nails, not a blazer on my shoulders. Robert did not yell. That is the thing people do not understand about my father. He does not explode when he is angry. He goes quiet. He folded the internship schedule in half, set it on the counter, and said something I can still hear if I close my eyes. "I left that farm so you would not have to, and you are walking right back into it." He did not say it with anger. He said it with disgust, like I had chosen to eat from a dumpster when he had built a perfectly good kitchen. From that day forward, Robert Merritt had 2 daughters, one real and one he preferred not to mention. Diana got the phone calls, the business lunches, the introductions to his clients. I got silence. He did not cut me off dramatically. There was no big scene, no confrontation. He simply stopped. Stopped asking about my life. Stopped calling on my birthday. Stopped mentioning my name to anyone who mattered to him. The first Christmas card without me went out that same year. I did not even notice until Mrs. Elliott told me 12 months later. My sister Diana is 4 years older than me. She is sharp. She understood something about our father that took me years to fully see. Robert's love is conditional, and the condition is obedience. When I turned down the internship, Diana did not waste a single day. She called Robert that same week and volunteered to take the very desk with my nameplate still on it. She learned the listings, passed the licensing exam at 22, and climbed into commercial real estate by 25. By 30, she was managing property leases in the capital. Robert introduced her everywhere as my daughter in the business. Diana earned that position. I do not deny it, but she also maintained it by making sure there was only one daughter in the frame. The erasure did not start with Robert. It started with Diana, small moves at first. She would schedule family dinners on weeknights when she knew I could not drive 2 hours from the valley. She would plan holiday gatherings on the exact weekend I was finishing harvest and then act surprised when I could not attend. "Oh, I did not realize you were busy." She always realized. Then came the Christmas cards. One November, I was 21. Diana called Claire to discuss the card layout. 3 people work better for the composition. 4 throws off the framing. The next year, she lives on a farm. The aesthetic does not match. By year 3, it was no longer discussed. 3 merits: matching outfits, professional photographer, 200 copies. I asked once, just once. I was 23. 5 Christmases had passed without my face in the family card, and I decided I deserved an answer. I called Robert on a Sunday afternoon in December. I could hear a football game on his television. I asked him directly, "Dad, why am I never in the Christmas card?" He did not pause the game. He did not ask me to repeat the question. He simply said it flat and calm, as if explaining gravity to a child. "You are a farmer, Sarah. What did you expect?" Just like that, no anger, no hesitation. He said it the way a man explains an obvious fact. "Of course you are not in the card. You are a farmer. Farmers do not belong in our Christmas cards, not the ones we send to the partners at the firm, not the ones for the neighbors with the landscaped yards. You grow kale. We sell houses. You wear boots. We wear blazers. What did you expect?" I thanked him. I do not know why. I said, "Okay, Dad, thank you," and I hung up. That night, I walked out to the south field, sat down between 2 rows of late tomatoes, and breathed. I did not cry. I just breathed. And I made a decision. I would never ask again. Not because I accepted his answer, because I refused to give him the satisfaction of hearing me ask twice. My mother Claire is a different kind of problem. Robert is a wall. Claire is fog. You can see through her, but you can never hold on to anything. Every Christmas without fail, she sent me a personal text message. Same format every year. "Merry Christmas, sweetie. Thinking of you." A small heart. Send. That was her version of motherhood. A single text to the daughter she had spent the afternoon cropping out of the family portrait. When I asked her once if she thought it was strange that I was missing from the card, she did that little laugh of hers, the one that means she is about to say something she rehearsed. "Oh, you know how your father is. He does not mean anything by it. He loves you in his own way." His own way. That phrase could justify anything. Grandma Eleanor was the only person who never pretended. She never said Robert was right. She never said it did not matter. She just looked at me with those steady gray eyes and said quietly, "Soil does not care about Christmas cards, Sarah. Let me tell you about the woman who never erased me." Grandma Eleanor Merritt, Robert's mother, farmed this valley for 40 years. Her husband passed young, a heart attack in the barn when Robert was just 12 years old. Eleanor did not sell. She did not move. She kept farming alone. 40 acres of vegetables, a flock of chickens, and a roadside stand that the whole county knew by name. When I was small, every summer meant Grandma Eleanor's farm. I would wake before sunrise, pull on boots, and follow her into the rows. She taught me how to check soil health with a kit from the hardware store, how to spot pests before they destroyed a whole tomato plant, how to price a box of sweet corn so that the farmers market customers felt good about paying fairly. She never spoke directly about Robert's Christmas cards. But one evening, I was about 16, I mentioned at her kitchen table how the card had gone out again without me. Eleanor set down her coffee mug, looked at me steadily, and said, "Soil does not care about Christmas cards, Sarah." Then she took me out to the greenhouse and showed me how to start seeds for winter lettuce. Years later, after she passed, I found something in her desk. The bottom drawer beneath a stack of old seed catalogs. 15 Christmas cards from Robert and Claire, every single year. She had kept them all, every glossy photograph of 3 Merritt smiling. Every year her granddaughter was missing from the frame. She never said a word about it to anyone, but she had counted, and she had kept the evidence in a drawer 10 feet from where she ate breakfast every morning. By the time I was 28, the farm was doing well. Better than well. I had landed a contract with a small group of farm-to-table restaurants in the city. 3 locations, weekly deliveries, year-round. The local newspaper ran a profile on me, Blue Ridge Valley's organic pioneer. The community agriculture program had grown from 30 families to 60. I had installed a drip irrigation system that cut water use by 40% and increased tomato yield significantly. Revenue that year reached $170,000. Not wealthy, but stable, growing, and entirely mine. Meanwhile, Robert's real estate business was slowing. The market had shifted. Buyers became scarce. His listings sat unsold for months. He let go of his office assistant. He had partnered with a developer on a planned housing subdivision outside the city, 32 homes on a former horse farm. He invested $80,000 of his own money and co-signed a construction loan. Then, the county changed the zoning. Construction stopped. Permits were pulled. Robert's $80,000 was locked in legal disputes, and the loan payments kept coming due every month. He needed cash. And somewhere in the back of his mind, the math had started. 40 acres in the Blue Ridge Valley. Rural land demand had tripled since the pandemic. Remote workers, retirees, weekend getaways developers were paying prices no one had imagined 5 years earlier. A developer named Craig Arden from Northern Virginia had been buying parcels in the valley all year. Robert assumed the farm was still part of his mother's unsettled estate. She had passed 3 years earlier. He figured the paperwork was simply sitting in a lawyer's filing cabinet, waiting to be activated. So he called the estate attorney, a man named Harold Payne, in the nearby town of Staunton, and asked about initiating a property transfer. What Robert did not know, what no one in my family knew, was that Harold Payne was not holding a will. He was holding a trust, and the name on it was not Robert Merritt. Grandma Eleanor had begun slowing down in the spring of 2211. She was 81. Her knees gave her trouble on the porch steps. Her hands trembled slightly when she poured coffee. But she still walked the rows every morning slower, but she walked them. I had been living in a small cottage about 10 minutes down the road. That spring, I moved into the farmhouse with her. She did not ask me to. I simply showed up one morning with a suitcase and said, "The heater in my cottage stopped working." She looked at me over her glasses and said, "The heater is fine." I said, "I know," she nodded. That was all we needed to say. We had 2 years together in that house. 2 years of dinners at her kitchen table, evenings on the back porch watching the light fade over the mountains, mornings in the greenhouse talking about seeds and seasons and nothing in particular. She was not soft in the sentimental way. She was warm the way good soil is warm, quietly, deeply, without needing to announce itself. 3 times that year, I noticed a dark sedan with out-of-town license plates pulling into the driveway. A tall man in a gray suit would come in, sit with Eleanor in the parlor for an hour, and leave carrying a leather folder. I assumed it was medical paperwork, advance directives, insurance matters, the things older people arrange quietly when they begin preparing for the end. Eleanor never explained. I never asked. She was entitled to her privacy. In hindsight, those visits were Harold Payne. 3 quiet meetings in her last year of full independence. 3 meetings during which my grandmother, with the same precise care she used to plant tomato seedlings in perfectly straight rows, was transferring 40 acres of Blue Ridge Valley farmland into a revocable living trust with a single beneficiary: me. Grandma Eleanor passed on a Tuesday morning in March of 22-3. She went exactly as she would have wanted at home, in the bed she had shared with her late husband for decades, with the bedroom window open and the first warm breeze of spring moving slowly through the curtains. I was holding her hand. She had not spoken in 2 days, but that morning she opened her eyes, looked directly at me, and squeezed my fingers once. Then she was gone. The funeral was small. 60 people at the Valley Chapel, farmers, neighbors, the woman who ran the feed store, the couple who owned the orchard down the road. People who had known Eleanor not through a Christmas card, but through a handshake and a basket of tomatoes. Robert arrived in a dark suit. He stood in the back row during the service and delivered a eulogy that lasted 90 seconds. My mother was a hard-working woman. She loved this land. He said nothing about what the land meant to her. Nothing about who would carry it forward, just she loved this land past tense already finished. Diana arrived 20 minutes late in heels that sank into the church lawn and left 30 minutes before the reception ended. Claire cried through the entire service but did not speak to me afterward. She stood beside Robert, holding his arm, eyes fixed on the ground. After the last guest left, Robert found me in the chapel kitchen washing dishes. He leaned against the doorframe. "So," he said, "what happens with the farm now?" I did not look up from the sink. "I keep farming it." He raised one eyebrow. "We should talk about that," but he said nothing more. He put on his coat, took Claire's arm, and walked to his car. I finished the dishes alone. 3 years passed. I farmed. The seasons turned. Planting, growing, harvesting, resting, planting again. I expanded the community agriculture program to 85 families. I signed a 4th restaurant contract. I hired a full-time worker named Danny, who had farmed tobacco his whole life and wanted to try something that did not give him a cough. I thought about Grandma Eleanor every day. I wore her old gardening gloves until they finally fell apart. Then I bought new ones and kept hers hanging on a hook by the door. The farm was mine in every way that mattered except legally. I assumed it was still part of Eleanor's unsettled estate. I had not heard from any lawyer. I figured the paperwork would sort itself out in time. Then, on December 15th of this year, 6 days before Christmas, a letter arrived from Harold Payne, attorney at law. I opened it at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee in my other hand. The letter explained that Eleanor Merritt had established a revocable living trust in 2021. The trust held the title to 40 acres of agricultural land at the farm address. The sole beneficiary of the trust was Sarah Merritt. The trust included a delayed notification clause. The trustee was instructed to notify the beneficiary when she reached age 33, or when a third party made an inquiry regarding the property, whichever came first. 1 week earlier, Robert Merritt had contacted Harold Payne's office requesting information about transferring ownership of the property. That inquiry triggered the notification. I read the letter twice. Then I set down my coffee and opened the second item inside the envelope, a smaller sealed envelope with Grandma Eleanor's careful handwriting on the front for Sarah when the time comes. I held a letter from a woman who had spent her final years making sure the ground I stood on could never be taken from beneath me. I remembered Robert's voice on the phone years earlier. "You are a farmer. What did you expect?" Now I understood. Eleanor had expected everything. I opened Grandma Eleanor's letter with a kitchen knife, slitting the envelope clean along the top, the way she used to open seed packets. No tearing. Inside was 1 page, front and back, written in her handwriting. Not shaky, not rushed. Deliberate. She must have written it on one of her steady days, when her hands were calm and her mind was sharp. "Dear Sarah," it began, "if you are reading this, then someone came asking about the land. I knew they would. I just did not know when." She wrote that she had always known Robert looked down on me for choosing the farm. She wrote that she had always known about the Christmas cards. Then the line that stopped my breath completely. I kept every card they sent. 15 Christmases. 15 photographs without you. I counted. She explained why she had never confronted Robert directly. If I had fought him, he would have cut me off the way he cut you off, and I could not lose you. You were the only one who still came. Diana stopped visiting when she was 17. She said the farm smelled. Robert came twice a year and stayed 3 hours. He sat in my kitchen, talked about his listings, and left before the sun went down. You came every weekend. You planted with me. You ate with me. You sat on this porch with me. Then the paragraph that broke me open completely. This land is yours. Not because you earned it, though you did every single season, but because you were the only one who loved it the way I did. Take care of it. It will take care of you. And if your father ever asks why I chose you, tell him this: I chose the one who showed up. I sat at that kitchen table for a long time. The coffee went cold. The sunlight moved slowly across the floor. Ruth had given me the land. But more than that, she had given me proof that someone had been watching. Someone had counted. Someone had kept 15 years of silence in a drawer as evidence, not of bitterness, but of love. That evening, I called Harold Payne. He answered on the second ring, a careful, unhurried voice, the voice of a man who chose his words the way Eleanor chose her seeds. He confirmed everything. The trust was legal and binding. It had become irrevocable upon Eleanor's death. No one could alter its terms. I was the sole beneficiary and the rightful owner of 40 acres. Payne told me more. Robert had called his office the previous week, asking about the estate property, his exact words, and had inquired about transferring the deed so the land could be sold. Payne informed him that the property was held in a trust, not in the estate. He told Robert there was a beneficiary. He did not reveal my name. Your father then asked, Payne said carefully, whether the beneficiary could be persuaded to cooperate. Not asked, not invited, persuaded. I thanked him. Before we hung up, Payne said one more thing. Your grandmother was very specific about her wishes, Miss Merritt. She wanted you to have time to grow before you had to deal with this. Her exact word, grow. 3 days after that call, Claire's Christmas invitation arrived. Thick cream envelope, my mother's handwriting. The timing was not a coincidence. I already knew exactly what it meant. I called Claire. She answered quickly, voice bright and warm, the performance voice she uses when she needs something to go smoothly. Sarah, did you get my card? Yes, I told her. Then I asked directly, why now? Why, after 15 years? She had her lines prepared. Your father and I have been talking. 15 years is too long. We miss you, sweetie. It is time to be a family again. I asked her if Diana knew. A pause just half a beat too long. Actually, it was Diana's idea. That was the tell. Diana, the woman who had spent 15 years carefully engineering my absence from every family photograph, suddenly wanted me at Christmas dinner. I connected the dots without difficulty. Robert had called Payne. Payne had said no sale without the beneficiary's signature. Robert had told Diana. And Diana, who thinks entirely in transactions, had seen the play immediately. Get Sarah to the table, soften her up, slide the paperwork across after dessert. I told Claire I would come. I said it calmly. I even said thank you. But I was not going as a daughter returning home. I was going as a woman who already knew precisely why she had been invited and who was ready. The day before Christmas Eve, I drove to the Valley Post Office, 3 miles down Route 205T. The clerk behind the counter, a woman named Faye, who bought tomatoes from me every summer, weighed a large manila envelope and raised an eyebrow. Heavy one, she said. Christmas cards? I smiled, something like that. I had sealed the envelope at home that morning. Inside it, 15 Christmas cards from Eleanor's desk drawer, a photocopy of the paragraph about counting, and a short note I had written on lined paper, the same kind Eleanor used for her planting schedules. I paid for the postage, walked to the truck, and drove home. The envelope was not for Christmas Day. It was for after. Christmas Eve morning. I woke at 5, the way I always do, fed the chickens, checked the greenhouse heaters, wathed the dormant rows where the winter cover crop crimson clover was quietly holding the soil together until spring. Everything on the farm was steady. Danny had the holiday off but would check in by text. I showered, dressed, and stood in front of the mirror a moment longer than usual. I chose clean jeans, a navy flannel shirt, and my good leather work boots, the ones Eleanor had given me for my 25th birthday. Farm clothes, deliberately chosen. I was not going to dress up for people who had spent 15 years telling me I did not belong. I wanted to walk through that door looking exactly like what I am, a farmer. The drive from the valley to the city takes about 2 hours. The road was quiet Christmas Eve. Most people were already where they needed to be. I drove in silence, thinking about Eleanor, about the trust she had built in secret, about the 15 cards she had kept in her drawer, about the letter she had written knowing I would not read it until she was gone. Claire opened the door before I even knocked. She must have been watching from the window. Sarah! She pulled me into a hug that smelled like hairspray and roasted turkey. Behind her, the house was decorated the way Claire decorates everything, coordinated, deliberate, designed to photograph well. The tree was white. The garland was real cedar. The mantel had stockings, 4 of them. The 4th one, clearly new, clearly added recently, had my name written across it in glitter glue that was still slightly tacky. They had added a stocking for me. Yesterday, probably. Robert stood in the living room doorway. Gray sweater, pressed trousers, reading glasses pushed up on his forehead. He nodded at me. Good to see you, Sarah. No hug, no handshake. The nod you give a contractor who has arrived to give an estimate. Diana was on the sofa, ankles crossed, holding a glass of white wine. She smiled the smile that reaches her cheekbones but stops well short of her eyes. Hey sis, Merry Christmas! I stepped inside and looked around, and then I saw it. On the mantel between the cedar garland and a crystal ornament was this year's Christmas card. For the first time in 15 years, it had 4 people. But the 4th person, me, had been cut from a candid photograph and digitally pasted into the family portrait. The lighting did not match. The resolution was slightly lower. My face was just barely too large for the composition. They had photoshopped me into the frame they had removed me from for a decade and a half. Not because they wanted me there, because they needed me to feel like I belonged just long enough to sign something. Dinner was turkey, cranberry sauce, and a performance so polished it could have been rehearsed. Robert carved the turkey and asked about the farm in a casual, practiced tone. 40 acres is a lot to manage alone, is it not? I said it was. He passed me the gravy. Have you ever thought about selling even just the back parcel? I told him no. Diana leaned forward. A developer from Northern Virginia has been looking at properties in the valley. Land like yours could go for over $1 million. I took a bite of turkey. The farm is doing fine. In 30 minutes of dinner, Robert mentioned the land 4 times. Its size, its value, its potential. He never once asked about my crops, my 85 saw families, or my revenue. He never asked about Danny, or the restaurant contracts, or the irrigation system. He asked about the land the way a broker asks about a listing. Then, as Claire was clearing the plates, Robert set down his napkin and said quietly, "There is some paperwork from your grandmother's estate we should go over after dessert. Just some loose ends." I set down my fork. Loose ends. That is what he called it. Dessert was pumpkin pie. I did not touch mine. Robert led me to his home office after the plates were cleared. The room smelled like leather and printer ink. His real estate license hung on the wall. His desk was clean except for one thing, a neat stack of documents held together with a black binder clip. He sat behind the desk and gestured to the chair across from him, as though this were a client meeting. I sat. He slid the stack toward me. On top, a sale authorization form, pre-filled. My name typed into the property owner line. The property description, 40 acres, the full address. Below it, a blank signature line, waiting. Beside the documents, a glossy brochure, Arden Development Group, Luxury Rural Retreat Community, Blue Ridge Valley. Architectural renderings of stone houses nestled into hillsides, an offer sheet inside, purchase price, $1.4 million, for Eleanor's farm, for my farm. Robert folded his hands on the desk. This is a good deal, Sarah. Better than anything that farm will ever make you in a lifetime of growing vegetables. He said it as if he were doing me a favor, as if selling the land his mother had given me was a generous act. The office door opened. Diana walked in holding a pen-silver barreled, elegant, the kind kept in a leather case. She set it on the desk next to the documents and said simply, "Just sign it. We can split it 3 ways, fair and square." 15 years. 15 Christmas cards without my face. And now, on Christmas Eve, they sat me down in front of $1 million land sale and handed me a pen. I looked at the documents, then at Robert, then at Diana, then back at the documents. No one moved. The silver pen caught the light from Robert's desk lamp. I let the silence hold. 5 seconds. 10. Long enough for Diana to shift her weight. Long enough for Robert to uncross his arms and cross them again. Then I spoke quietly. The same volume I use when I am talking to Danny about the planting schedule. "When did you find out about the trust?" Robert's expression shifted. A crack in the salesman's mask. He recovered quickly, but not quickly enough. "What trust?" I let that sit for a moment. "The revocable living trust Grandma Eleanor established in 2021. The one that makes me the sole legal owner of that land, the one you called Mr. Payne about last week." Robert stood up. His chair rolled backward and hit the bookshelf. "How do you?" Robert stopped himself. He already knew the answer. "He is the trustee, Dad. He notified me. That is how trusts work." Diana sat down her wine glass slowly. The color left her face like frost leaving a windshield, first at the edges, then all at once. "You knew," she said, "before you came here. You already knew." I knew before Claire's invitation arrived. The room went still. No one was performing anymore. Christmas music drifted in from the living room, something quiet and distant about snow and open fires. In this office, the only sound was Robert breathing steadily through his nose. Then he broke. "That land was supposed to come to me. I am her son, her only son. I grew up on that property. His voice climbed as he came around the desk. She had no right to go behind my back. No right to cut me out of my own inheritance. I stayed in my chair. She had every right. It was her land. You moved in with her. You worked your way in. You played the devoted granddaughter so she would hand everything to you. I moved in because she was 81 and she needed someone. Where were you, Dad? Twice a year, 3 hours each visit. You sat in her kitchen, talked about your listings, and left before sundown. Diana stepped forward. This is not fair. We have been supporting Dad for 2 years, covering his payments, helping him financially while you have been out there growing lettuce. I looked at her calmly. Cull, mostly, and it is profitable dirt. Robert tried one more angle. You owe this family. After everything we have, he stopped himself. Even he could not finish that sentence. Diana changed her approach. She put down the wine glass, clasped her hands in front of her, and softened her voice into something almost resembling sincerity. Sarah, please. I know things have been complicated, but Dad is in real trouble. He could lose his house. He may have to declare bankruptcy. You cannot sit on $1 million worth of land while your own father goes under. We are family. Family? She pressed on. Yes, we are still sisters. I was not family for 15 Christmas cards, Diana, her composure fractured. That was just photos. It did not mean what? That I did not matter, because that is exactly what it meant. Every year for 15 years, the three of you stood in matching outfits, smiled for a camera, and mailed 200 copies of a family I was not part of. That is not just photos. That is a statement. Diana tried one last angle, the final one she had. Grandma would have wanted us to stick together. I looked at her steadily. Grandma is the one who gave me the land, Diana. Not you, not Dad, not the 3 people in the Christmas card. She saw exactly what this family is. Robert stopped pacing. For one single second, his face changed, not anger, but something older than anger. His eyes went to the window, and I saw something I had never once seen in my father's face before. He remembered something. The fence he had built at 16 with his own hands, the dirt under his nails, the boy he was before he decided that boy was something to be ashamed of. It lasted only a heartbeat. Then his jaw locked again. You owe us, Sarah. I stood up. Not fast, not dramatically. The way you stand up when a meeting is over and you have somewhere to be. I pushed the stack of documents, the sale authorization form, the developer's brochure, the glossy renderings of houses that would replace my grandmother's tomato rows back across the desk toward Robert. I am not signing this. You are making a mistake. No, Dad. You made the mistake 15 years ago when you decided a farmer did not belong in your Christmas card. I picked up my jacket from the back of the chair, the navy flannel I had worn on purpose. I turned to Claire, who was standing in the doorway with her hands pressed against her cheeks, tears running silently down her face. Mom, you could have said something, any year, any card. You designed those cards. You addressed the envelopes. You licked every stamp. You could have put me in a single one and you chose not to. Every single year, you chose not to. Claire's cry was a sound I had never heard from her before. Not polished, not controlled, raw. I did not wait for her to speak. I walked through the living room, past the flocked tree, past the cedar garland, past the mantel where the photoshopped Christmas card sat in its silver frame, the first card in 15 years with my face in it, and the most dishonest one of all. I did not stop to look at it. I opened the front door and stepped out into the cold December dark. Behind me, Robert was shouting something about lawyers and rights and family obligations. Diana was calling me selfish. Claire was crying. I closed the door and walked to my truck. I stopped at the truck door. Maybe because Eleanor would have stopped. Would have turned around for one last word, not to wound, but to plant a seed that might grow in its own time. I turned and looked back. Robert had followed me onto the porch. His reading glasses were crooked. His face was flushed. Diana stood behind him, arms crossed. Claire was a shadow in the hallway light. I spoke clearly, not loud enough for the porch. You said I was just a farmer, Dad, that I should not expect anything. I paused. Grandma Eleanor thought differently. Robert opened his mouth. Nothing came out. He stood there on his suburban porch in his pressed trousers and gray sweater, looking at his youngest daughter in her muddy boots and flannel shirt. And for the first time in 15 years, he had nothing to say. I got in the truck, turned the key and pulled slowly out of the driveway, the way you pull away from a place you will not be coming back to. The last thing I saw in the rearview mirror was Robert still standing on the porch. The Christmas wreath glowed behind him. He looked small. 2 days after Christmas, I sat at Eleanor's kitchen table, my kitchen table now, and laid out 15 Christmas cards in a row, year 1 through year 15. I placed them all inside a large manila envelope. I added a photocopy of the paragraph from Eleanor's letter, the one about counting. And I placed on top a short note I had written on lined paper, the same kind Eleanor used for her planting schedules. Dad, you asked what a farmer should expect. Here is your answer. I expected nothing from you. Grandma expected everything from me. She was not wrong. Sarah. P.S. You were right about one thing. The farm did not fit your image, but it fit hers, and it fits mine. I drove to the post office on Route 205 Hiss. Faye at the counter weighed the envelope and raised an eyebrow. Heavy one. Christmas cards? I smiled. Something like that. I paid the postage and drove home. The call came 3 days later, 7 in the morning. I was in the greenhouse checking the winter lettuce seedlings when my phone rang. Robert. I wiped my hands and answered. I did not speak first. I held the phone and listened. You had no right to send those. His voice was loud but uneven, like a man trying to shout through a crack in his own chest. Those were private family cards. I know, I said. That is the point. A long pause. Then, barely above a whisper, she really kept all of them. Every single one. 15 years, Dad. She counted, more breathing. Then he said something I did not expect. She wrote me letters, too. Did you know that? Every year, one letter asking me to put you in the card. A pause. I stopped opening them after the third one. I threw them away. I let that sit between us like a stone dropped into a well. We both listened to it fall. I kept the cards, he said finally. The ones you sent. I have been looking at them all morning. Then he hung up. No apology. No, I was wrong. Just a click and silence. I put the phone in my pocket and finished checking the seedlings. Then I walked out into the cold morning air. The valley was white with frost. The mountains were sharp against a pale blue sky. I started my day the way I start every day, walking the rows, checking the soil, doing the work. Grandma Eleanor's work, my work. The next December, I made my first Christmas card. I asked Danny to take the photo on a Sunday afternoon when the valley light was at its best. I stood on the front porch of the farmhouse, Eleanor's farmhouse, my farmhouse with the mountains stretching out behind me. On the porch table beside me, I placed a framed photograph of Grandma Eleanor. 2 women on the same land, one in the frame, one in the photograph. Both exactly where they chose to be. The card read, "From our farm to your table." Merry Christmas, Sarah and Eleanor Merritt. I printed 100 copies. I sent them to every Casa family, every neighbor in the valley, every restaurant buyer, every friend I had made in 15 years of farming. I sent one to Faye at the post office. I sent one to Harold Payne. I did not send one to Robert. I did not send one to Diana. I sent one to Claire not because I had forgiven her, and not because I wanted to restart anything, because I wanted her to see it. A Christmas card with her daughter in it, standing on land that was hers, beside the woman who had made sure it stayed that way. I wanted her to hold it in her hands and know that her daughter had a family, that her daughter had a card, that her daughter had never been the one who was missing. She had just been looking for her in the wrong house. Some families measure your worth by the title on your business card. Mine measured it by whether I fit the frame of a photograph. It took my grandmother and 40 acres of Virginia soil to teach me that the people who truly see you do not always share your last name. Sometimes they only share your roots.